Today, we have a very special guest. She has 500 hours of yoga teacher training. She's an active meditation teacher. She is my beautiful, amazing, sexy wife, Catherine Francisco. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm so good.
How was that intro for you?
It was amazing, actually.
Good.
So accurate.
So before we get into anything, I wanted to say that anytime I talk to anyone around Rochester and they ask about you, I always tell them that she's the number one yoga teacher on the East Side. So do you think you're the number one yoga teacher on the East Side, Kat?
I don't know what standard I would be measuring by. So I would say no. I think you're completely fabricating all of this in your mind. Thank you. It's very nice.
Yeah, I had to put that pressure on you in the beginning here. So I want to ask you, honey, what does mindfulness mean to you, and how are you using it today?
Well, mindfulness to me, I think is kind of ever evolving, but to me, like mindfulness is just like the art of noticing what is going on. And so I think that it started off being like, I had to do certain things to notice what was going on. I really had to have the perfect environment and I had to be doing the same thing. And now I think where I am in my life has made that evolve to be like an ever moving practice. So just trying my best to be present, trying my best to really notice exactly what's happening without building a huge story around it. And then like using that to make a decision mindfully about what I want my response to be.
I like that. That's a beautiful definition. And I like asking that question because everybody has a little bit different meaning for themselves. And especially us as parents, right? We probably use mindfulness a lot.
And we try.
And we try to pay attention to how we parent, how we work on our relationship together. And I have a question for you about before and after. So years ago, before you started, how long ago was it when you did yoga? You started practicing yoga?
I don't really know what year it was. I feel like it was like 6 years ago.
I actually remember the picture. Remember the picture that I have of you at the door with the...
No, that's me going to training.
That was you for training. That's right. That was you. Your first day of training.
Yes, I looked like a second grader going off to school.
Well,
and I had my breast pump next to me because I had like a 5-month-old, and so I look like it's the first day of school.
Yeah.
And it was the first day of school. It was like the absolute best. But my practice, my mindfulness practice, and which really takes the form of yoga most of the time, was really, I think like 6 years ago when it like really began. Maybe more than that. I don't know.
So let's just say, it's about 6 years ago. And I'm sure you can remember before you were doing yoga and teaching it and practicing it to how you are today. What are a few differences that you've noticed from before to now? Major differences in yourself, like how you feel or what you're thinking, self-confidence. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
I feel like one of the biggest differences for me that yoga has really facilitated has been like really building some self-awareness around what is true and what I believe to be true. And we call that our story a lot in teacher training. And I've become very aware of stories that I build continually because, I mean, it's not like I just left them behind. I'm just aware of when they're there now. And I'm more able to step away from them versus I used to, I think, just really love to get stuck in them and maybe be the victim or even be the judge or be whatever I thought this story dictated in the situation. And instead now I feel like I have the choice because I can see it and I can see the separation of, what's real.
Yeah. And it's almost like it's an ongoing practice, right? Because it's never perfect and we're always trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah, it's actually something I love saying to new yoga students. I love the language of meditation practice and yoga practice. I think that is like the most genius choice. And I don't know where that came from per se.
Yeah.
But there's never like a performance. There's no recital at the end. There's no final presentation. It's just always practice. You could practice for 50 years and never be perfect at it. You'll never arrive. And I think maybe it will even change or ebb and flow along the way, but it's a practice and you can just show up for where you are in that moment. And that's the best you can do. I love that.
That's beautifully said. I actually never even thought of that idea of it being a practice. So it's never perfect because it's called a practice. I've never even put two and two together this whole time.
Yeah, it's like my number one joke with when I teach a class called New to Yoga. It's like my number one joke is like, oh, it's a yoga practice, not a yoga perfect. And like, I'm very funny in that class. I'm not funny here.
I actually steal most of my wife's most of your jokes. I do. You tell me, I say something to you a lot, and then you say something funny, and then I'll text that person, and I'm like, babe, I just stole your joke.
I write a lot of your funny content.
Yeah. So I'm actually not really funny. To anybody listening to this, it's all comes from Catherine. That's where my.
Oh, well, thank you.
Actually, so 6 years ago, we've been married for 8 years now, right? Coming on actually in just a few days, our 8-year anniversary is.
Yes.
So, and 6 years ago, when you were talking about you first started right around there, I was honestly mindlessly going through life. And so I saw you doing this and going through this, and I was super proud of you at the time, but I never really understood exactly what yoga was, why she enjoyed it so much. And so over the years of watching her and seeing her and watching you grow, I'm trying to her and you, I want to make sure I'm talking in conversation with you. It's, it's still learning here, but watching you grow, honey, it inspired me to actually start my journey of becoming a better person and learning mindfulness and learning how to be just better in general. Not that I was some horrible human being before, but you've inspired me over the years and to be where I am today and where I'm going to continue to grow. So if I haven't ever said that to you, which I think I might have, I want you to know that.
Really nice. You have said that to me a few times in different ways. So that's really excellent. I remember the first yoga class we took together. I think I dragged you to it. I'd gone a few times by myself.
Yeah.
And I thought I was like a freaking expert. And I was like, I've taken 2 classes and now I have to show my husband how amazing I am at yoga. And I brought you and you were like, that is hard.
It is very hard. And I was super sore. I'll never forget it for a couple days. And, it's when I first did that class, the end of it, Shavasana, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, what are we doing? I want to get up and I have stuff I have to do. Why are we sitting here for 5 minutes in the silence in the dark? My mind's going, I'm like, I gotta go. So, and after I'll never forget, it's like 4 or 5 classes that started to shift and I started to appreciate the Shavasana at the end. And especially now that I've been practicing meditation for 8 months. So I'm really glad you dragged me into that first class. Totally.
I really think people have such an issue with Shavasana. And if you want to trigger a yoga teacher, you should leave in the middle of Shavasana. We will maybe explode internally. Because it is where everything lands. It's why you practiced. You came there to calm down. You came there to breathe. You came there to have a moment. And people just leave. They leave before it. They leave in the middle of it. We don't take a lot of time. I mean, I take very little time to just sit down and just be with yourself and just don't do anything. It's not even that you have to meditate. You literally have to do nothing in Shavasana.
Yeah.
The whole point is to rest and to allow like all of the blood flow and the stretching and the breath and the mindfulness you've built to just settle. And so it's honestly like breaks my heart. People will leave and like wave at you like, goodbye, thank you for class. And I'm like, no, you didn't do the best part. You didn't do like the actual thing that you came here for.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to explain. People just really have a really hard time being still, and they consider yoga, a lot of people I think still is like a workout to many folks, especially hot yoga, what I teach. And so they're there for all different kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
So someone who's there maybe for abs is not going to care about laying there at the end. But I always hope that it shifts for them and it becomes about something more than abs, and it becomes about actually resting yourself.
Yeah. And I think I totally agree 100% with what because I've been there. I've been to the person who wants to get out of there during Shavasana. So you can understand it completely when people
I've been
do it.
there.
Right.
I mean, like everyone has to go through that,
Yeah.
I think, to get to where they appreciate it. Everyone has to, like, when you first start to meditate, you can barely sit there for a minute. It's really hard because we don't do it. We don't sit down and do nothing.
Yes.
It's like something we're scrolling our phones or we're talking to someone or watching TV. We don't just like sit down and just sit down.
Or watch TV and scroll our phones at the same time.
Right, or both.
Yeah.
We do 1,000 things at the same time. My teacher, Cindy Weiss, the owner of Breathe, she calls it single tasking. Like, we don't single task. We brag about multitasking. And so, like, yoga really is single tasking. Meditation is single tasking.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing one thing. And so, yeah, Shavasana is, like, so important. This is like a PSA for Shavasana, I think. Like, just lay there, people. Just do it.
Yeah. And it's so, like, I'm so glad you said that. And you talked about scheduling a time, like, for yourself. Nobody schedules 5 or 10 minutes for themselves. And it's so important to just reset. Because if you're working kids and you're doing like a million different things, making tons of decisions throughout the day, you need that time to reset. So that Shavasana is a great opportunity to do that. So walking out and now it's just no.
And once in a while I get like pushed to the edge, and like we do little announcements at the beginning of our class, and I will like really get into it to the point that I think people might think I'm a little nuts. But honestly, one of the things that I say is like, also, you're in a room full of people, and I have been one of those people that is my only rest of the day.
Right.
Like where I am not sleeping. I've had an infant at home. That is it. That's literally like the rest. And when you leave and cause a disturbance, you're also disturbing those people. And so it's like, I just think it's so important to just be still and to kind of encourage other people in the room to be still.
Yeah.
And then like in real life, you said like scheduling time. I think that's important, but I also think that once you learn that stillness is okay, like through practices like yoga and meditation, you don't really need to schedule it as much anymore because you just kind of find it in little places in your day. Mm-hmm. And so like,
how do you in what places? Like where do you find it?
Like, sometimes sometimes a little mindfulness practice will have to be like kicking the kids out while I just put my makeup on alone in silence and just take a minute to actually like think about what I'm doing and just notice it. Sometimes mindfulness is being outside and having a cup of coffee for 2 minutes and just listening to the birds and looking at the light through the trees and noticing the temperature change and things like that. So I think that all of the different tools like meditation and yoga, they're there to be tools so that you can bring that back out into your life and it becomes easier to find it.
I see you a lot. I notice often where you'll just close your eyes and just take like one deep breath in and let it out and then open them and then just keep going throughout your activity, your day. I've noticed that you do that. And I'm sure you do that on purpose, right?
You know what's so funny? I've done that since I was like in high school.
Oh, okay.
I've done that. I've like, it's kind of like mental snapshot. And I guess that's always been so funny. I think it's, well, yeah, I guess now it's kind of changed into like a deep breath here and there too. But like, I mean, in terms of sometimes when I really want to remember a moment, like I remember, like I was definitely a music theater nerd. So I remember my last time out on stage, I was taking a curtain call and I knew, like, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the last time. And so I was out in the middle of the stage. I could feel like the lights. I had all my friends around me. I could see the audience. I knew I'd done a really good job. I remembered the feeling. And I like did that thing where I closed my eyes. I took a breath and I was like, I'm going to remember this. And I do. I remember it like many years later, that exact moment. And I remember all kinds of moments like that. I have little snapshots.
Did you do that at our wedding when we got married?
I did it several times during our wedding.
Yeah, because I remember
sure.
somebody gave. Do you remember who gave us that tip? So we're like, just stand in the corner. Remember, it was just stand in the corner and observe everybody. Take some deep breaths and just take it all in for a couple minutes, even just a minute. Do you remember who said that to us?
I don't remember, but it was good advice.
Yeah.
I think your wedding day is one of those days that can really like blur by.
Totally.
And I actually felt like we were pretty present for ours, and I remember a lot of it.
Probably helped that we didn't get hammered too.
No, we did not get hammered. We didn't get hammered. No, I couldn't like keep a drink in front of me because every time I put it down, like the servers would take it away. So there was no choice. But still, we had like such a good time, and I'm glad I remember that. And actually, I just did a speech. You know this. You were there at my sister's wedding. And like, I really wanted to give her something special as like a gift. And I couldn't think of anything. I mean, we just gave her like, a check like everyone else. But I was like, if I could give somebody something at their wedding, it would be like a minute to actually like realize what was happening. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of stuck that in at the end of my speech, and she really liked it.
Yeah, I had a couple people come up to me and say that they liked that too.
So that was just like awesome. A little moment of mindfulness. Like we had people like close their eyes and just kind of listen.
It was just
take
a couple minutes. Yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was awesome to have that. Me, I work from home. I'm home all day. And Catherine, you
also work from home all day.
Also work from home all day. So we are around each other a lot. We see each other a lot. Yes. We're around the kids a lot, which is amazing. There's a lot of benefits to it. But I don't think we have to work extra hard on a relationship, but I think that it's super important for us.
It's unique though.
It is unique. I don't think there's a lot of people that have that situation. There are some, but if we could figure it out by being with each other all day, I think there's a lot of others can too, easily, and not easily, but in certain ways. And what I've realized is, okay, so I've been really working on myself for the past year, right? And Catherine's, you've been really working yourself for the past 6 years and even deeper now. So we've had, as a couple, working on our relationship a lot more over the past year or 2 years than we did before, especially with kids. I think that's important. And what I feel is when you do that, you learn a lot more about each other. You have to go through a lot more challenges because you're actually facing them head on.
Yes.
So when we face these challenges and and we start to learn about our vulnerabilities. We start to learn about our insecurities more, each other's, and how we're dealing with them. So a lot of dirt comes up, right? When you start doing that in the beginning, what I've noticed, I had no idea that was going to happen. I really didn't. So as soon as we started really talking more and having deeper conversations and learning, and I wanted to really truly make our relationship a number one priority, which I've told you several times, it's caused a lot of not debates. How can I explain this?
I think that it's just like actual muscle, right? In order for muscle to grow, the muscle actually gets very irritated and it like has to like grow upon itself. I mean, this is just like someone who doesn't know about muscles talking about muscles. But I mean, it's like if you want anything to grow, like sometimes you have to like go through some shit to get there. And I think just in like doing even the work on myself, like in yoga trainings and just at home through journaling and things like that, like things come up that you see in yourself that are not flattering and that you don't identify with. And I think that when we're doing that as a couple, it's extra ugly because then it's like, oh, like this is how maybe I've been seen by this person and I haven't been seeing it.
You're correct.
And like, how have I not been a good partner? And also there's an element of like being embarrassed, I think, or like, ashamed of that behavior. And then you have to go through all of that. And then once you're finally on the other side of that and you realize it's actually there, then you can finally start to like heal it. And so there's a lot of, when there's two people involved, there's a little debate. There's a little bit of
friction.
No, I'm not like that. But then like, oh, yes, I am. I am like that. Yeah. I do that, actually. Oh. And I think that in the end, yeah, definitely your relationship gets stronger.
Yeah. I think we're two different people, right? So a lot of times before in our relationship, I would get upset if you didn't do something that I would do or the way I would handle it. Or if you didn't, I wouldn't think like that. Why does she think like that? Or why is she being like that? I'm not like that. And I came to realize that if I wanted to marry myself, I should just be single my whole life, right? You're not married, and so you learn to love deeply, and you learn to appreciate the uniqueness of your partner, and that's what I've been really being mindful of over the past year or so. So, and it takes a lot of work, like you said. It totally does. Recently, actually, on the topic of love, I wanted to ask you this. I'm actually curious.
I'm ready.
I listened on a podcast recently, and I can't remember who it was, but they said that in a marriage, love is not enough. So just loving somebody is not enough. You need to put in the effort, right? Because, for example, I would love to fly a plane, but I can't unless I read a manual, take classes, and learn how to do it. And even then, I might fail, right? Put in the effort. I would love to.
Like your love of flying is not going to allow you to fly a plane.
Exactly. So love is part of it, but it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
So you have to put in effort and purposeful effort in a relationship consistently, just like going to the gym, right? You can go, if you don't go consistently, you're not going to continue to grow. So it's the same type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what would you define? This is just yourself. What would you define as efforts that a significant other, like a husband, would is considered effort in a relationship?
Like
what types of
do I think that couples need to do to have a healthy relationship? Yeah,
so if love isn't enough, what would you define as enough? As far as what would you define as effort in a relationship?
I think if you're, especially speaking from a mindful point of view, I think really actively listening to your partner without the need to respond to everything they're saying, without listening from a defensive point of view, which is something I know you and I always are trying to work on, because it's very hard to not want to defend yourself.
Yeah, I'm not attacking you. Stop! I'm not attacking. And then you say it to me, and that's where we keep each other in check.
Yeah, but just to actively listen and to come from a place of we're on the same team here. We are actually not enemies here. We are just having a disagreement over something, and that's removing the story out of everything. Here we are partners having a disagreement, who love each other and who want this to work, and we're actually not enemies, and all we need to do is just talk this through and listen to each other and actually think about why the other person thinks they're right, and maybe meet in the middle with what is actually true.
Right.
And that's really, really hard. It's a very hard thing to do in the moment when you are fired up and pissed off or whatever it happens to be. And so I think we try.
Yeah. And so you think like really open communication is considered part of effort in a relationship, and talking a lot about those things.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be in a good relationship. I mean, what I consider to be kind of inauthentic relationships to me are the ones where like they never fight, they never disagree, they never do, because I'm like, well then, like, how have you grown at all? Like, what are you what are you doing?
Totally.
You know, you have to let people know what you're thinking and what you're hurt about and what makes you angry and what makes you sad, and but then also what like they did that made you like so happy and joyful. And if you're really communicating and really listening, you're going to have disagreements sometimes. I feel it's my opinion. I don't know. I probably made some really happy couples really mad about it. But whatever.
I mean, it's okay. That's okay.
IMO. So
yeah, it's all our own opinions, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. I like that. All right, so honey, is there anything else that you think couples should do that to put in that effort in a relationship?
I mean, there's lots of other things.
Do you think surprise? Well, let me ask you this: do you think surprises are cool? Like, is that part of it?
I love a surprise. Love a surprise.
Well, flowers, is that your
flowers are lovely. I think know your partner's love language.
Wait, so I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So we get a CSA every week.
Yes.
And it includes flowers.
Yes.
So the other day I was out and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get her flowers, but we get new ones every week. And so I was like, no, now I can't even do that.
You didn't want to flower spoil me.
No, I didn't know if that was a thing. Is that a thing? Is that allowed?
I mean, I'm not going to tell you that, like, not to buy me flowers.
I mean, I guess I could get the flowers on top of the flowers.
I mean,
right?
I wouldn't hate it, but I don't need them, I guess. But I mean, I think that gifts, to say that gifts aren't important is silly, because, like, we're not talking about jewelry here. But like any little gift is like so nice. Like I think gifts and acts of service for me, like I can't sit here and say I don't love them. Like I love, like once in a while, like you'll bring me my coffee upstairs. It's like so good. Like just someone bringing you your coffee is such a gesture.
Yeah.
And yeah, like thinking of you at the store and bringing you like your favorite granola, or you saw flowers that reminded you of me and you buy them or something, or just like, it doesn't even have to be something that you buy. I think that
one of my favorite things to do on it, like I'll be out, this happens decent amount of time. I don't know why. And I think it has to do with just doing 15 minutes of meditation every day and yoga every now and then. And is to text you, well, not to just do it out of the random, but all of a sudden I get this wave of like, oh, I love my family, I love my wife, I'm like so happy, because isn't that what it's all about, being happy, right? It's just how can we become happy? Obviously emotions are good, but how can we other emotions are fine, but how can we become happier? So I get these waves of emotions sometimes, and I literally will text you, be like, babe, I love you, I love the kids, like I'm just so happy.
Yeah, those are nice.
Those are some of my favorite. That's some of my personally favorite things to do in those situations. The other day,
maybe words of affirmation too. Is everything my love language? I feel like everything is.
We were having this conversation the other day, and
I really like everything. Yeah,
so,
you know,
good. Put all the pressure on me. Now I have to do everything to make sure you're.
No, it opens doors. Literally anything makes me happy. Isn't that exciting?
I have lots of options now.
I really. I like when I mean, moms can get on the same page with me here. Like, if someone tells you you're a good mother, it's like the best thing ever. And sometimes you'll just say that to me out of the blue, and I'll just be like so happy for a very long time. And lately also, you've caught on that like my latest love language might be the gift of time alone. So sometimes like you will volunteer to put the kids to bed and send me to do something, or watch the kids while, I'm go to yoga by myself or something. And that is like super appreciated because I don't get a lot of time alone. So that's really nice too. We're kind of off track, but I really think like knowing exactly what your partner loves, which might be a lot of things, really leaning into when you're thinking of them, when you see something that reminds you of them.
So the other day,
write it down, send it to them, put it on a piece of paper, give them that flower, do what you can.
The other day we were having dinner. This was pretty cool. And it just, something came to me and I was like, Aria, say something you really like about mommy. Remember that? Remember that?
Can't remember.
She said, she was like, she goes, I love your hugs and kisses. Remember?
Yes. Okay.
You remember she said that? I love your hugs and kisses. And then I said, okay, now Kat, say something nice about Aria. And then you said something about her. And then she loved it. She was like, Daddy, say something nice about Weston. And then she goes, Weston, say something nice about Daddy.
Weston is 17 months old.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
17, and Aria is 4.5. So she, and then she like made up the voice. Remember, she's like, hi, I'm Weston, and I think Daddy's hugs are so nice. I like when he feeds me.
Yes. She did like a creepy little baby voice. And we were like, what is that?
And she loved it though. It was so funny. And then she went to the bathroom. She was, I have to go to the bathroom, like she always does in the middle of dinner, right? I have to go to the bathroom. It's like
she tells us she has to make room. It's really cute. It's good manners.
She's gonna listen to this.
We're doing a really good job teaching manners.
Yeah, you need to make room. Yeah, and in 12 years she's gonna listen to this and go, I can't believe you talked about my poop on the radio or the podcasting.
Oh, all we do is talk about your poop, honey. It's just it's what moms and dads talk about is poop all the time.
Yeah, moms and dads talk about weird things, don't we?
Yeah, we really do.
And then one thing we try and do is when we're on dates, when we go out to eat and dinner and stuff, we try to do that. We'll start talking about the kids and go, I think we need to change subjects and not talk about the kids.
Which is dumb because what is my life except for I'm home all day with children. What else have I done today?
So, the point of getting away is to get away from them, right? So we do
good though. We talk about other things.
Yeah,
we can usually pivot.
Totally. Well, we also found like this cool website that had like good questions when you're on a date.
Oh yes. Oh, I want to give credit.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to give credit to the illustrious Elise Huey, who is the best. She is another yoga teacher. She's a friend of mine, and she came over one night.
Love Elise.
And we were drinking wine, and she like whips out her phone and is like, "We should do this thing I do with people." And what is it? It's like we'll have to fact
35
check.
questions of love.
Yeah, 35 questions that lead to love.
Yeah,
lead to love.
Yeah, you can Google it and it'll show right up.
Some article. Yeah, and they're just questions that provoke a little extra thought that you maybe wouldn't have talked about if you were just in a room of your friends. You usually like stick to topics of what do you do and how's work, how are the kids,
surface level
things
stuff
like that. And these are more like, tell me your deepest, darkest fear. And they get a little bit more.
Describe what was your perfect day from morning to night?
Oh, that was a really good one. So they're more thought provoking and they're just really, really fun. So yeah, highly recommend if you are sitting with your spouse at dinner or with your whoever and you cannot think of anything to talk about, maybe because you see each other all day, maybe because all you talk about is your kids, or maybe you just had a boring week. Just pull that up. It's a good thing to do.
It definitely is. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it sparks all kinds of
a little more mindful conversation.
Yes. Better conversation.
Definitely better conversation.
So you're not just sitting there staring at
But we
each
do
other.
argue sometimes over the answers. Sometimes it's like he'll say an answer and I'm like, why? Like, why would you have dinner with that one person living your dead? Yes, because yours was Tony Robbins, I was like, anyone?
Well, so That was at that time, right?
Yes.
That was so. And we talked about that. How 6 months ago, our answers would have been different than right then. So that's what's cool about it too.
Mine would still be the same for the record.
You can. Who was it again?
Glennon Doyle.
Oh, Glennon Doyle. That's right.
And Abby Wambach, because I love them.
Yeah, you read her book.
They're goals. Yes. No, she's just goals all around. I just love her. But I mean, do you want to talk about maybe some mindfulness in our actual parenting and what we're trying to do?
So
that
we
was
had,
what we
on Instagram, Kat, you put up a question, and we had a few people chime in on that. And one of the questions was, and I want to say something about it, and then you can.
Well, what I put up was just like, what should Justin and I talk about tonight? And my Instagram base is primarily like moms.
Moms who go to Aldi's. Moms who go to
Moms
Aldi's.
that love Aldi.
And one of the questions was like, how do you incorporate mindfulness with your kids? So being somebody that is absolutely mildly obsessed with making sure that he meditates daily. By the way, I notice when I don't for a day or two, which happens very rarely now. But I like to with Aria is I would use what's the Headspace app, which most people probably have heard of. And there's these little kids meditations that are like 2 minutes on there. And for myself, I'll play them. And I was doing it very consistently, and she loved it. And, she doesn't just sit there the whole time. She moves around, and I just let her do whatever. But the guy talks about 2 minutes of doing a kid meditation, which is really cool. You have to get it and check it out. And the other thing I'll do with her sometimes, if we're laying down randomly, I'll put a stuffed animal on her stomach, and I'll have her watch it move up and down.
Yeah, that's a classic one.
Yeah. And that way, so it gives her
she watches her breath
and attention to something, and just like only thinking about that, because we know kids' mind, along with adults' minds, go crazy. I know you do other things and practice, so we both kind of tag team that throughout the days.
I would say when I'm trying to bring mindfulness into parenting, yes, there are things that like I do with Aria, but the mindfulness really falls on me most of the time when I'm parenting. If I'm talking about what I'm going to do, if we're talking about what do we do with kids to make them mindful.
That's where I was going. You can go
I
wherever
do
you want.
a lot of that through like sensory activities. I think sensory is a really concrete way to bring mindfulness to kids. And I do a lot with sensory mainly because it kills a lot of time and because it's fun for them. They don't realize they're doing something that is like STEM related. They don't realize they're doing something that is mindful when they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And just asking them to describe I'm talking about my son does literally just like splashes and everything. He's not really mindful. But asking Aria, who is 4.
And screams.
She also screams. But they're both very loud. But asking my daughter, to just describe something while she's doing it. Like I remember we were doing like a water bead activity. And we were doing it outside. I'd filled up our water table with water beads, which are like these little like gelatinous beads.
You let them grow
they're really
overnight,
fun.
Right? They grow overnight. And
they're like little thingy-mabobs, and you put them in water, and they grow into little like balls of Jell-O.
Yeah.
And they're really fun. They're very tactile. I really like to put my hands in them, and Aria really liked them too, and just playing with them and everything. And just ask them questions about it. How do they feel? How do they feel in your hands? Do they feel dry or do they feel wet? Oh, they feel wet. Tell me how they feel. They feel squishy, and just
I like
asking questions and getting them to describe what they're doing is mindfulness. That's and sometimes just we'll be outside on a beautiful summer day. This was really recently. We were out playing out on our swing set, and she came over and just kind of like was talking to me about something, and I said, let's just be quiet for a minute. Can you close your eyes? Let's see how many things we can listen for. Like, what do you hear? And so if you're bringing sensory in, it could be feeling things. It could be looking at things. It could be like, tell me the things you hear. Listen to the birds. You could direct it. You could let them direct it. They don't have to know it's a mindfulness activity is what I'm saying.
I like when you did the one where she was she would have a blindfold on. Do you remember this?
Yes, we had these little mindfulness cards.
Yeah, that was an
and this
awesome
one.
activity. That she loved that one. So with your kids, like that's a great one. With a blindfold, then you pull out like different things. So you open up a peanut butter jar, put it underneath her nose, and have her smell it and try to figure out what it is. Pickles, whatever, and then different smells. And she cheated a few times, but. But the point is there, right?
And, another thing I do with her, we do most nights, we do a bedtime prayer. And it's not to say that, like, you need to pray to be mindful.
Can you give the format of what you do?
We do a format every night of basically we say, like, Dear God, and then we say thank you for, and then she lists things she's thankful for. So she's actually doing a gratitude practice at the same time that she's praying. She's learning to find things that she is grateful for. And then we do please help. And she can't say please help me, ride my scooter, or like I make her go back and do it again. We're praying for others and what they need. So she's doing an empathy practice while she is also praying. And so it's a prayer, but it's also allowing her to flex the muscles of compassion and gratitude and like recognition of her condition and other people's condition. And so that is something I think is really easy to do with kids. And you don't have to make it a prayer. You could just make it a practice that you do every night. You sit down and you say, let's say thank you. And let's like maybe think of other people and what we wish we could do for them. You could do it every night. It'd be pretty simple.
Yeah, I love that. And she
loves it.
She loves it. And sometimes she'll even remind me to do it. If you're not around, she'll say, Dad, we have to do Dear Jesus. And then we go through it. Thank you for, and then help the people. Well, her favorite, we have to talk about her favorite help right now.
Yes.
She always starts
girlfriend
off
is
with
very creative. And the same one comes up. It's, I want to pray. What is it? There's a man in the dark.
Lost in the dark and doesn't have a flashlight because
yes.
the batteries ran out or something like that in the flashlight and he can't see.
Yeah, and he's scared of the dark. It's like a very long explanation for someone who's basically in the dark without batteries and a flashlight.
And she wants to help him every night, though. It's so kind. She's
very concerned about this person. Then I'll like kind of press her sometimes, like, all right, like that's not real though. Like let's think of something like maybe someone that's sick or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so she'll think, and it'll be like some other very close variation of that. She'll go, okay, maybe there's a sick person. They're alone in the dark. They don't have a flashlight. So we need to move on. And I'll give her prompts a lot of the time.
Totally. Yeah. And like when I think it's cool because if somebody is hurt, like when your mom had her surgery,
yes.
Every night she would do, I will help Grammy feel better, get better. Yeah. So that's cool. It's a really nice thing to do. I'm glad you introduced that to our kids. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important.
It wouldn't be there if it wasn't for you. So I'd just be like, all right, go to bed. Go to bed. Daddy's got stuff to do.
Be quiet. Yeah. I know our nighttime routine is very extensive at this point. We have a lot of things. 2 books, 2 songs, a prayer, kiss, hug, wiggle, all of it.
Tonight was 3 kisses when I was up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Another one?
Usually we have to have a menagerie of babies, and then maybe like one of the babies is missing. We have to look for them and get angry. And then we finally find the baby. We chuck it at her. And then she needs water. And then we get her water and it doesn't have ice in it. It's like a whole thing.
Do you think other people go through this same?
Yes.
But to say, because you have put her since day 1 of coming out of the womb,
we've had a routine.
You've had a routine, so she just is out. And same with Weston, just the routine out. Right?
Yes. They can go to sleep for almost anyone as long as they have their routine, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
They just have to know that routine. It's very important.
And
so if you want to babysit my kids,
stick to it.
We'll write you a book on how to put them to bed.
When Weston or Ari was little, Catherine has been known to have a 2-pager instructions for a babysitter, which is cool. They won't know what to do, right? Is that right? Did I say that right?
They'll never not know what to do.
Boom.
Yes.
Right on.
So yeah, the other thing people were talking about though that I wanted to get back to is like they were talking about like how do I not lose it when my kids there was lots of very colorful language, but the gist was like when my kids are like making me very angry. And do you want to take that first? Or do you want me to say?
It's totally up to you. I mean, so I actually am. I have been so many times, I have to tell you, impressed with the way you've handled some of the situations, and then other times I'm like, ooh. So
I mean, I am the very first to say that, like, I have a lot of patience, and that patience has an edge.
Sure.
It has a limit.
Yeah.
And there is definitely scary mommy some days when I've just had it. And I always like get really mad at myself after that. And then I'm like, after that, then I always like forgive myself because it's like a human moment and it never gets out of control. But I mean, I will yell sometimes and I wish I didn't yell.
I have a question about that. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. So let's say, and I have these same exact, by the way, you're not the only one that goes through that. I have these same things where I'm calm and then there's times where I just want to explode and can't deal. So, but mindfulness lets us manage it and a lot clearer and quicker. So, when you have, I've never asked you this, I don't think, when you are in that situation and I'm an observer, right? Because I'm here all the time. And I can see it sometimes, situations. And if you're doing that, and I know later you're going to regret, like be like, shit, I shouldn't have done that or said that or act, which is a rare occasion. But when you do, would you rather have me say, hey, honey, come on over here, I'll talk to you, or just like, let's calm down together? Or would you rather have me like say, hey, you know what, go over there, let me take the kids? Or I guess just, would you rather just have me completely stay out of it or intervene and say, hey, honey, but you might want to just take one step back and just think about what's happening right now? Would you?
I think,
because I can.
For me personally, if I am very angry already and I am maybe at that hair trigger point of patience, if I have someone that maybe feels like they are criticizing what I'm doing, I'm not going to respond super well to it. So I think like for me in situations, if you're going to get involved, if someone else is going to get involved, and I think probably this would apply if I was going to do the reverse to you, like you want to feel like you have like a teammate.
Can I help maybe? Like,
can I help you with something, or just come in and say what I'm trying to say and kind of tag in, and just give me a minute to breathe almost. But like to come in and say like, oh, I think that maybe you should take a step back and stuff, that might also come across as kind of undermining what I'm saying. But there's no problem ever with you coming in on the same page as me. I think that's wonderful when you can sense that I'm about to lose it. Like, I think a really great thing is just to come in and just like, I love that when you come in and you just say the same thing that I'm trying to say, you get the same thing accomplished, but like you haven't had that on-ramp of anger and you're able to finish out what I have been trying to finish.
Yes. And
that's great.
Yes. Okay. And that goes back to the whole teammate thing, right?
Yeah.
Which you talked about before, which I did want to talk more about, and we will. Because there are times when, and I think we've talked about this. There are times when I disagree, or I would handle things a little bit different than the way you are, because we're not the same person, right?
Same.
But because we're on the same team, and that situation with the kids is getting a little heated, I come in as a supporter of the way that you're doing it and what you're saying, because we're on the same team. Now, I am guilty. Of course, I'm not a perfect human. So there has been times where I haven't done that, which now is very rare, I think, right?
Yeah.
But I think I mindfully stop. This is literally what goes through my mind when there's situations happen, because kids are, let's be honest, so many times kids are crazy, right?
They're bonkers.
So our emotions are all over the place. There's no one's going to challenge your ego more than your kids. Let's be honest. So
they're like, some days I feel like Arya is in my head, like she's literally in there and reading my thoughts and then just like saying the exact thing to make me cry or make me angry. It's just so weird how they can trigger you so easily. I feel like it's so personal.
Yeah. So
And it's so not, because they're just out of their minds because of like growing and developing and testing out their boundaries, and that's all it is.
sometimes I look at it and like if I know we use this word and it's not cliche, but like sometimes if I'm aware enough in the situation, I'll realize that that she's just doing it to test me, and I'll take it as like a challenge to my own ego, to my own self and insecurities or whatever it is, that, okay, I can handle this in a calm demeanor without losing my shit and flipping out on her and then regretting it later. Because she's just a 4-year-old that's trying to challenge me. And again, there's no one that's going to do that. So you could take it as like a growing opportunity, like you said, right?
And I think if I had not, like, I really credit yoga training and yoga practice. Honestly, I really don't think I would be there in my parenting if I didn't do it. I really think that it has made me such a more like just realist, I guess, in parenting, where you can sit there and remove the story real time versus, and there are those moments where you remove it later and you have to forgive yourself and you messed up that time, but that's rarer.
Fewer in between.
It's very few in between, where I really feel that I am driving the car most of the time. I feel like I have at least like my hands on what's going on, and I can figure it out as it's going on, because I'm not sitting here like weaving the tale of how my daughter hates me and I need to be the perfect mom in this moment and everything. All I really try to do is I try empathy first every time. Lately, that has not been doing the trick.
Yeah. Well, the phase right now is pretty interesting.
We're really in a tantrum phase is what we're in. So the empathy, but above all, like my goal is to appear at least to her that I am nonplussed and that I am unaffected,
right,
and then really try to stay calm. And the more riled up I get, the more riled up she gets. It's never effective.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's right on. And yeah, it's right now she's in that, like, I mean, we don't need to talk about it too much, but crazy trying to do all the, like, it's a tough situation. So we're going through this right now. And that's why we're able to really hit it home and talk about it. And now, okay, so I know exactly where I wanted to go with this that you brought up. I don't think that I would be as mindful as a parent or as aware as a parent unless I didn't because if I didn't do yoga. And that's the thing, right? So we can listen. This is a good point. We can listen to people tell us how to parent, what to do. We can read all the books. We can do all the things. But if we're not actually doing meditation or yoga or changing some sort of habit in our lives to be more of a mindful parent, it's just going to a lot of times come in for a few days and then it's just going to go away and it's going to be lost, right? So by meditation, by yoga, by teaching, all that stuff helps it stay consistent and stay with you throughout the days and through the weeks and through the months and through the hard times, right? Is that fair? Am I explaining that in a good way?
I mean, for me, it's mainly just caused a shift in my entire perspective. But yeah, I get what you're saying, that like you need to continue to practice it. But obviously I speak mainly from a yoga lens because it's really like my sweet spot and what I love. Yeah. And so for me, yoga is like this teeny microcosm of how you really are. And so you show up and you get on your mat and you're ready and you're going to do your yoga. And then like all of these gross things about you somehow follow you in there. And you start with all of them. You start with maybe wanting to compete with someone next to you. You start with wanting to look really good. You start with maybe it's the opposite where you're not good enough and you suck. You start with that your body is gross. Just
You're
any
not
of
flexible
those,
enough.
You're not flexible enough. Just
Yeah.
any of those thoughts in any given moment are there. And they're there. And then you now have to learn in this little safe space, microcosm. You first of all have to learn to recognize those.
Those thoughts are okay, right?
That's
It's
step
okay.
one,
Yeah.
that you even like, oh, when I'm in this pose, I'm thinking about looking really good for the person next to me.
Yeah.
Like you have to recognize that about yourself.
Right.
And then step two then is like, now I have tools. I have breath and I have drishti. I have some place to look. I have, the awareness. And now I can decide to focus on something else. I can, bring my mindfulness to what I'm feeling, my sensation, all that kind of stuff. And then I really think step three, once all of that is done, is now like being able to do it in real time during your practice. Like when you feel that start to bubble up, you catch yourself and you're able to adjust in real time. And so then that follows you. It follows you outside the room. So now like when you're parenting, it's like really, really the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to catch yourself. She's getting me right now.
Yeah.
You have to catch her.
She
is under my skin.
Yeah. Can I say when you come home from a yoga practice, a yoga sesh, I like
Justin
to call
calls
it.
them a yoga sesh.
When you get home from your yoga sesh,
Yes.
I can see like lights beaming off of your body, like how like vibrant and more like I don't know, happy. I don't know what the right word is, but I could see like your peacefulness. You're just centered, right? I can see it. Like I can totally
Processed.
tell.
I am processed.
Yeah, I can feel. Yeah, I can feel now that you aren't other times, right? But I can feel like how much more, or that energy from you. Honest to God, every single time I feel it and I see it, I notice it. Do you feel that when you like? How do you feel when you come out? Like, what are some things that you notice?
I even notice it when I teach, because teaching I feel like is the next best thing to taking a yoga sesh.
Totally, 100%.
I think that teaching is also very mindful.
100%.
Like, so whether I'm taking or teaching, I really feel like, especially if I'm taking a yoga class, that I'm there to really like process that exact day, that exact moment. And sometimes I come home and you might see me visibly happier. Sometimes I get out of practice and I'm not happier, but I'm clear, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
So like, I mean, even if like I am having a very sad part of my life, I am sad for what's actually happening, and I have removed all the extra shit around it.
Okay.
And I am clear on how I feel. So like,
yeah, I understand.
I'm just trying to think of an example. Like if you're sad about something, you can be sad that, I don't know, you could be sad that maybe someone passed away.
Yeah.
And you don't have to add on top of that they never loved you, or, that your relationship wasn't good enough, or you should have said this and that. You don't have to layer upon layer.
Which
on
can
top
easily
of that,
happen, right?
Right? So that's just adding more.
Mm-hmm.
And you just be sad that you like lost that person and you love them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really trying to do in my parenting, is remove all the extra stuff.
Yeah, and what I love about you is that you're open with it too. So sometimes you'll just come up to you and like, this hasn't happened recently, but maybe a month or two ago, I think you came up to me and you were like, sometimes I just feel like Arya just like doesn't love me, like doesn't appreciate, right? And you start telling this story to me, and I just, when we talk about it, and then you just realize, I'm just making up this story that obviously isn't there. So it's great.
It's definitely, I get caught up in it too. I'm a human being. It definitely happens. We all do it. Yeah. If you can't sit here and say, I never create anything extra on anything, because everybody does it all day long. We do. But when you start to have a little bit of a mindfulness practice, you start to notice it, and then you can actually do something about it.
Exactly. And that's the nail on the head right there. I like that. And
I think it's so funny that everybody was like asking us to talk about mindful parenting, because we are so in it right now. And And I'm like, I am not an expert on this at all.
No, disclaimer.
But I will talk about
Yeah.
where I'm coming from. And so we're such a work in progress, and we're just trying our best, and we're trying really hard not to mess up our kids like everyone else. And someone did ask me for book recommendations, and one that is really, really good that I come back to more, because there's like two, I think, that I really, really like. And they're both about empathy and mindfulness, which is why I think I really like them. I don't know the authors for either one, so did not do my homework. But the first one's called like Peaceful Parent.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Peaceful Parent, Happy Child, I think is the first one. I really like that one. I've read it like 1.5 times. I've run it straight through, and then I like poke through it when I need it. And the second one is How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen. It's like the spin-off of the original, and it's for little kids. And they're both very much a mindful, empathetic, very meticulous approach. And I love them both.
Good recommendations.
Those are my recommendations.
I'll put them in the show notes, and you guys can get them. I'll put my
I'll read any parenting book though. Like I just throw them at myself and read them.
Yeah, we have several.
We have lots.
Yeah, we do.
And Justin always tells me, when you read that, will you just tell me what it's about?
The parenting one. Okay, I did.
You don't even lie. And
I
say
did do that, but I have read.
Where is the lie?
Yeah, though it's there. That's true. I'm not going to say it isn't. It's 100% true. However, I have read a couple parenting books now.
Yes.
Now I have.
Maybe
there's
one.
A couple. There's
You've
a
read
couple
one
right over there.
Parenting book. You've read one parenting
One
book.
and a half.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I get my information from you.
Justin's been reading a lot lately. He's kind of like he didn't read really anything, and then like all of a sudden he had to read like everything he should have read his entire life in 6 months. And so he's just constantly reading,
consuming
kind of
it
like
all.
Harry Pottering right now, like really hunkering down under the steps reading books.
I think you know what? It's interesting you brought that up, because I truly believe that because of my meditation, it has opened up this creative piece in my mind that has just been hidden and just blocked away for so long. Honestly, that's like yearning to learn more.
Yeah.
Totally. And so I just enjoy learning more. And I think it's the reason I started this podcast, really.
Yeah.
And the reason that, that's interesting you brought that up.
Yeah, he's a real readaholic.
Well, you used to read. So here's how it was before, right? You would be reading, right? And in bed. And then I would be scrolling through my phone in bed at night.
Yeah.
In the past. And then I'd be like, why do you read? Like,
As you do.
Right?
As a lot of people do.
Right. But now.
Myself included.
Yeah. Sure. Right. But I would never read at all. Zero reading.
Yeah.
It would just be scrolling. And now it's never scrolling before bed. It's always at least 15, 20 minutes of reading before I close my eyes. And it helps me sleep so much more. I don't know why I never did this in the past. I have no idea. And a deeper
It's
sleep, a better
definitely
sleep.
noticeable.
Yeah. And now we go to bed
It
at
was
night.
very weird when you started reading a lot. It's like, what is he doing? Is he okay?
Is this an alien take over my husband?
Yeah, I was like, where is the guy who made fun of me for reading all the time? I'm confused. But it's good. It's good to have somebody read something and say like, hey, listen to this, like, and have like a conversation about it. It's really, really nice. So that's good.
Yeah, I do. When I first, so like with anything, when you first start it, you want to like share everything. So I would start. Again, I've read more books in the past 8 months than I have in the past 8 years. So that goes to tell you. So I'm like, oh, I gotta tell you this. This was good. Ooh, this was good. You got to see this. So I started, and then she's like, all right, Justin, it's okay. I get it. You're reading. I get it.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. Yes, I understand.
Well, I think we talked about a lot today.
We did.
Is there anything else that we want to hit and talk about here?
I mean, I'll talk about anything.
Let's talk. I want to go back on the topic of being teammates. And the reason I want to do that is because I feel like when I put that word in my mind in situations, whether we're out with friends, family, with our kids, when we're together alone, when we have arguments, whatever it is, and if I bring that teammate, and I bring that in my mind that we're a team, we're in this together. I'm not here to make her feel like shit. I'm not here to make her feel bad about herself, which I used to do in the past, admittedly. Like I would purposely dig into something that I knew would get under your skin, right?
Yeah.
And it would make me feel good for like a couple minutes, but then I'd feel like an asshole later.
Yes.
Right? And then now I look back at it like, wow, what a dick. Seriously, I'm like, wow, what a dick. And I would do that way more than I should have, right? And it was out of complete non-awareness of what I was doing, right? I was just going about life thinking like, hey, it's okay to do that, whatever, and everything's fine. We'll get over it. But when you put the word teammate together, like we're a team, you don't do that to somebody that's your team. You figure out ways to lift them up. You figure out ways to support them. You figure out ways to make them feel good about themselves, not bad, right?
Yeah.
So I literally intentionally make sure that if I do that, I'm instantly like aware of it and I apologize. I'm, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. And I think a lot of that has to do with, our communication and all meditation and yoga that I do. So I just wanted to mention that. And, cause I think that's really important in a relationship, honestly, that you're a team. And then when you're out with friends, you're not there to make your wife look stupid, or when you're not with, am I talking too much? Are we okay? Or when you're alone and you're with other people. And so here's what happens sometimes, right? And this is something that I don't know if we ever talked about it, I brought up, but I'll be out with people and they'll start talking about their wives and they'll be like, oh yeah, she's annoying me with this. She's doing this, she's doing that. And, I don't judge. It's them. It's who they are. But I used to would sometimes feed into that, be like, yeah, and where now I just don't want to engage in that. And
so you tell everyone like, I'm the shit now?
Yeah. I told you, number one on the East Side, number one yoga teacher on the East Side. For all you East Siders listening to this.
Zero empirical data whatsoever.
No numbers needed, just straight facts. Yeah. So that's what, and so I wanted to talk about that, or I wanted to at least touch base on that because I think that's really important in a relationship. And the less conversations we build about how our husband's like this or our wife's like this, the less subconsciously it stays with you, and it's in it. So yeah, does you know what I mean? Talk about that. Elaborate, please.
I think that it's like anything. It's an idea that we just talked about this the other day, like just even using the language of partner when you're talking about your husband or wife, instead of saying my husband or my wife, it kind of frees it from any sort of like baggage that comes with either of those words, any sort of connotation, anything societal, anything historical that goes along with being a good wife or a good husband or whatever that happens to be. Because I think a lot of us, have a lot of this stuff from being brought up a certain way or, just whatever society puts on us of like, you have to be a good wife. You have to be a good husband. You have to do these things. If you change it to being a good partner, which I actually was really inspired by I listened to a podcast, Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell call each other partners all the time.
Armchair expert.
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful, and I thought it was a really good idea. And so I was brought up chest. I'm like, I'm gonna start calling you my partner a lot more.
I like it.
I really think it really puts you on the same team. And when you're like feeding an idea like that, you just keep feeding like that we are on the same team instead of that we are different. That's the thing that's going to grow. And that's the thing that's going to get stronger. And all the separation and like the idea that you are actually two different roles is going to go away.
Yep. That's good. And that's where that effort comes in a relationship, right? That's where the effort part comes in, is you're being mindful
Yeah, it's
of
hella
doing
effort.
that stuff.
It's so much effort. It's so much work. It's not like you just wake up and like everything is sunshine and rainbows in a marriage. You have to work at it. I mean, we obviously, just being very frank, have had some really rough times. I mean, I really went through a thing after having my son mentally, and I think we were in two very different places, but we have worked at it. Like, we fought for it. We really did. We talked. Obviously we went to therapy. We had to work through it there. We had to work through it when we got home. And honestly, like, I feel like it's so much stronger. Like, you have to go through it. Yeah. You have to go through it, and you have to work on it, and you can't just like hide your head in the sand. Yeah. It's the least mindful thing in the entire world. Which is a lot of people tend to do. So yeah, totally. Yeah. And you can't sit here, and he kind of gave me a look before I said therapy, like to tell me I could say it. 'Cause I feel like there's such a thing around that. And I go to therapy, and we go to therapy. Like, everyone should go to therapy. It's so great. It really is. And I feel like that's a really big part of being mindful, is realizing, like, my spouse is not my therapist. You know, my spouse is not there to fix me, and my spouse is not there to listen to all my problems and tell me how to go about fixing them. Right. There's actually a role for that. There's actually someone who gets paid to do that. And we can go together, and they can listen, and they can help us iron it out. I do want to say that when we first went, we were doing it as a proactive activity for the most part. We still do. And we still do. Yeah. We just went recently, and she looked at us. We all kind of blinked at each other. She's like, "What's going on?" We're like, "Literally nothing. Like, nothing is happening in our life." She goes, she goes, "I love these sessions where, like, you guys, everything's great, and there's nothing you need that's going on right now." Check in. Yeah, check in. I love these check-in sessions, right? Yeah. And we still talked about some great stuff. Like, we still, but it was a good. We talked about a lot, and it doesn't have to be something that's like dark and scary and weird. Yeah. I think it's a big part of actually being aware of who you are and what's going on in your relationship. It's actually understanding what's happening right now. It's very mindful. But yeah, 100%. But let's be honest. It's probably very easy to go a couple times and then quit, because you start bringing up some shit that you never realized. And you're like, oh no, I have to do this. I have to deal with this. And if you're strong enough and you care enough about each other and you want to make the best, like, my goal, it's very weird, because it's like, sit down, we're going to talk about your problems. And then it's like, they just cut you off and just like get spit back out into the world. And you're like, do we keep talking about this? Like, what do we do? Yeah. And so I think it took us a minute to get our sea legs around that. But I think the best way to do it is it's the best now. Yeah, totally. It is. I love it. Yeah. It's good. It's definitely very scary and very weird to learn about yourself and have someone look at you and say, well, tell me more about that. And like they've caught you in something. But it's good, because it's the thing you're not catching yourself. Yes. And that's important. And it should be something in your awareness, because then you can do something about it. Yeah. So that's our plug for therapy. And that's our plug for really just putting the effort in. Yeah, more effort. There we go. More along the lines of just effort. Yeah. And your partner's your teammate. Yes, you are my teammate, honey. Yeah. I love you. I love you. That was fun. That was fun.